I heard that Charlie Sheen had I heard it in the context of, no, I hadn't heard it in context of rape. I had heard it in that, he had said to Haim, "This is what men do."
He described exactly how it happened, where it happened, and everything, and he told this story to multiple people, not just Feldman. At least a dozen people in Feldman's inner circle had heard the same account from Hay over the years. One person in the documentary said it was pretty much common knowledge in their circles. Everybody seemed to know about it, but nobody did anything. Nobody reported it. Nobody protected Hay. They just knew and looked the other way. At a screening in Los Angeles, several other people featured in Feldman's documentary said that Hay had either told them directly about what Sheen did, or they had heard the story from people Hay confided in. This wasn't a one-time confession that Hay made in private. He talked about it with multiple people throughout his life. When Feldman premiered his documentary My Truth in March 2020, things got absolutely crazy. And honestly, it was pretty suspicious what happened. The plan was to stream the film worldwide at the same time as the Hollywood premiere. Feldman had spent $1.3 million making this documentary. There were 400 people packed into the screening, standing room only. But just 15 minutes into the premiere, Feldman came sprinting down the aisle, flanked by 4 security guards. He grabbed the microphone and told the crowd there was a problem. The website streaming the film had crashed. People in the audience started shouting that the site was being hacked in real time. Feldman said, "You're seeing it for yourself. People don't want this to happen." Now, was it actually hacked, or was it just technical difficulties from too much traffic? Nobody knows for sure, but the timing was definitely suspicious. Here's Feldman finally about to share his truth with the world, and suddenly the site goes down. It definitely raises questions about whether someone was trying to prevent people from seeing what he had to say. Let's talk about what all of this did to Corey Hay. Because this isn't just about what happened to him. It's about how that trauma shaped the rest of his tragically short life. Hay's vulnerability as a teenager was exactly what industry predators were looking for. He was young, talented, and famous and didn't have the protection he needed. The betrayal from adults who should have been protecting him left him emotionally shattered. And here's something really telling. Hay started drinking regularly during the filming of Lucas. You know, the same movie where he says Charlie Sheen assaulted him. That's not a coincidence. Then in 1987, Hay landed his next major role in The Lost Boys alongside Feldman. This was when he tried marijuana for the first time, and as his success grew, so did his dependence on substances. He later said, "I lived in LA in the 1980s, which was not the best place to be." He admitted he used drugs for about a year and a half, and then it led to crack cocaine. By the time he was filming License to Drive in 1988 with Feldman, HS said he had completely lost control of his addictions. At just 18 years old, still basically a kid, he entered rehab, but it didn't stick. He became what he later called a chronic relapser. Hay died on March 10, 2010. He was only 38 years old. Officially, the cause of death was pneumonia. But Feldman believes, and honestly it's hard to disagree, that the childhood trauma H experienced ultimately led to the substance abuse and health problems that killed him. Now, Feldman makes it very clear that this wasn't just about him and H. This was a pattern that affected countless young actors in Hollywood. He mentions other child stars who faced similar situations. There's Tatum O'Neal, Anthony Edwards, Ricky Garcia, and Bella Thorne. The list goes on. And if you go back even further in Hollywood history, there are stories about Judy Garland, Mickey Rooney, and Shirley Temple. Some of those older stories might be myths or exaggerations. It's hard to know what's true from that long ago. But here's what we do know. There are documented cases of child abuse in Hollywood from every single generation, from the early days of film all the way through to right now today. The difference is that now people like Feldman are finally speaking out with specific names and details. They're not just hinting at problems or speaking in vague terms. They're saying exactly what happened and who did it. There's another piece of this story that Feldman revealed, and it connects to an even more recent scandal. Remember the documentary Quiet on Set about Nickelodeon? Well, there's a name that appears in both stories. Brian Peake. So, I heard that Charlie Sheen had I heard it in the context of no, I hadn't heard it in the context of rape. I had heard it in that, he had said to him, "This is what men do." Brian Peake was convicted in 2004 for crimes against a child. He went to jail. But here's the crazy part. After his conviction and jail sentence, PC continued working in Hollywood. He was hired as a dialogue coach on the TV show Anger Management. And according to sources familiar with the show, the decision to hire Brian Peck came down to Charlie Sheen himself. Sheen was the star and had control over hiring decisions. This is the same Brian Peck who was featured in the Quiet On-Set documentary for what he did to Drake Bell. So Feldman is asking a very reasonable question. Why should someone like that be allowed to continue working on sets where they have access to children? Feldman even went to the Screen Actors Guild to try to get them to do something about it. He wanted them to strengthen union rules to make sure convicted offenders couldn't work on sets with kids. He wanted the union to take away PC's SAG card, but as far as we know, nothing really changed. So, how did people respond to all of these allegations? Well, it's complicated. Charlie Sheen has categorically denied everything. His spokesperson put out a statement calling the allegations sick, twisted, and outlandish and saying they never occurred. Period. Sheen's team urged everyone to consider the source, basically trying to discredit Feldman. But here's where it gets messy. Corey Haim's mother, Judy Haim, has disputed some of Feldman's claims. She appeared on the Dr. Oz show in 2017 and said it wasn't Charlie Sheen who assaulted her son. She named a different person.
I was in my mid-20s, right, the first time I really came over. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand. Right.
Now, Feldman had also accused Brashaw of abusing Haim, so they're not completely contradicting each other. But the fact that Haim's own mother is naming someone different than Charlie Sheen definitely complicates the story. That said, multiple witnesses in Feldman's documentary support his version of events. These are people who say Haim told them directly about Sheen, or they heard it from others who Haim had confided in over the years. The conflicting accounts just show how complicated and painful this whole situation really is. And unfortunately, Corey Haim isn't here to tell us his version anymore. Here's something really interesting. Years before all of this came to light, someone tried to warn us about Hollywood's dark side. I was in my mid-20s the first time I really came over here. You know, I had a whole bunch of weird paranoid suspicions about what the hell was going on because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't understand. Mel Gibson gave an interview where he talked about the dark underbelly of the entertainment industry, but at the time, nobody really paid attention. It wasn't until the interview resurfaced online recently that people started connecting the dots. He was trying to tell us something and we just didn't listen. And that's the thing. Many celebrities knew what was happening. They saw it, heard about it, and maybe even witnessed it directly, but they stayed silent. The culture of silence and looking the other way allowed this behavior to go unchecked for literally decades. So why are we talking about all of this now? What's changed? Well, look around. The Diddy situation is making headlines with similar allegations about abuse and exploitation. The Quiet On-Set documentary just exposed what was happening at Nickelodeon. People are finally ready to listen to what Feldman has been saying for years. And here's what's really striking. The same names keep appearing across different cases. Marty Weiss shows up in Feldman's story and in the Nickelodeon story. Brian Peake connects to both the H situation and what happened to Drake Bell. These aren't isolated incidents. It's a systemic problem. Feldman has been very clear about what he hopes happens next. When he was asked about the Diddy situation, he said he's grateful that justice is being served and he really hopes there's a continuation, that all these people get taken down one by one. So, let me ask you now, could this be the moment when Hollywood's system of silence finally collapses? Between Feldman's revelations, the Diddy case, the Nickelodeon documentary, and other stories coming to light, it feels like we might be reaching a tipping point. But here's the real question. Has the industry actually changed? Or have they just gotten better at hiding what they're doing? I want to hear what you think about all of this. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And remember, when someone tries this hard to silence you, when they call you crazy and go after your credibility and do everything they can to shut you up, it usually means you're telling the truth. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.